back to the Wealth Witches podcast. I'm your host, Katelyn Magnuson, and I'm so excited to have a special guest today that I actually met in Palm Springs at a retreat that I was speaking at. So I would love for everyone to know all about you and your business and who you are and just the beautiful human that you are.
Well, thank you so much, Caitlin. It's such a pleasure to be here today. I'm an online business manager and mentor for soulful entrepreneurs. So I have a passion for yoga and spirituality, but I'm not great speaking on stages like you do or being a public person. So I'm just really happy to take care of all the systems of those businesses. I work with life coaches, all kinds of holistic healers, light workers, everyone in spirituality and kind of the alternative fields. And I take care of their systems. I mentor them too. I share my experience with 50 plus entrepreneurs and I give them advice on how they can scale their businesses.
I love that. And how did you end up one, working in the niche that you're working with right now with coaches and light workers and spiritual entrepreneurs and doing the online business management and mentorship side of things? Like, what was your journey to this point?
I just have a passion for yoga and spirituality, but I knew I wasn't the teacher type. And actually, I studied to become an ecologist and I worked in that field for a while, but it was very hard to align my values with the work I was doing. Most of the clients we had I was working in a big firm and everyone basically wanted to destroy nature and build condos on top of it. So it kind of killed my soul for a while. And I pivoted. I wanted to be maybe, I didn't know, like maybe a novelist or something weird. And I ended up just building a website and I found my footing there. I realized I loved it so much. I didn't even care about writing the novel I had in mind. And then friends asked me for help, and that's how the ball got started rolling.
Okay, I love that. And I could absolutely see how working for a large firm as an ecologist would be soul crushing, sort of the antithesis of what you got into it to be doing, I would assume, especially as someone who loves nature and sustainability. It would it would be really disheartening. What are so you work a lot on like the systems and the setup and making sure that the back end is all taken care of for someone's business. So which we do, on the financial side, right? And there's it's interesting to me because I love being able to support creative, soulful, spiritual entrepreneurs and really see them step into their, zones of genius and like their area that they need to be in. What in your experience has been something that is overlooked by a lot of business owners that you work with, or like what's a mistake that they make before coming to you that you're maybe like, hey, this is, when you're doing this in business, you need to make sure that you X, Y, and Z, and you're not right now.
I think the biggest misconception is that they need to be ready and have things in place first. Often they'll feel kind of guilty and say, oh, I wish I was better at what I'm hiring you to do. And actually, the whole point is to be a team with diverse skill sets. So they don't need to be super organized or to understand their systems or be on top of what those systems can do. I'm there for that. So I guess what's holding them back the most is thinking they need to be already efficient or proficient in what I'm supposed to do. And they wait for like it's a useless waste of time to try to get there when actually it's not what you're supposed to be doing here on earth. You're supposed to be inspiring people, coaching them, teaching them, speaking publicly. And I'm going to be the person, hidden in the shadows, but making sure everything flows seamlessly.
I think that's really powerful too, because I know that I've definitely put off doing something because I felt like it needed to be perfect or it needed to be set up first. I don't need to know how to do everything. I don't want to know how to do everything. It's so valuable to have someone like you in a role where they, hey, I have these great ideas or I have, something to come to you with. And so being able to collaborate and have you help create the framework or make that, become a reality rather than holding off on putting that magic out into that world or into the world because you get stuck on the how or doing things that like you're like, hey, this is kind of all the things that I do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots of
pass me the ball. I'm
right.
ready to contribute. And I feel sometimes it's because they want to have more control over their business and what maybe they're a bit nervous of, okay, I'm going to be hiring someone and I want to make sure that it's worth my money. But I geek out like learning about the setups of all the email systems and course platforms and all those things. I'll be more than happy to give you options and see together like what would make the most sense for your goals, your audience, your products, your content. It's just very, very thrilling for me. And once they start realizing how much I can bring to the table, then it's so much fun because
Right.
it's truly collaborative. It's truly co-creating together.
Absolutely. I think that building that trust and having, because it can be, I think it can be difficult, especially in the coaching arena sometimes, because I think that maybe I know I've had this experience and I don't necessarily fault the people that I've worked with at all, but sometimes like the questions hadn't been asked well enough, or you don't know yourself well enough when you're first getting into business to ask the questions or to make sure. And so sometimes you can end up with someone that's not a good fit. And maybe it can cause you to be hesitant working with someone else that could be a great fit, and being able to hand off those responsibilities because you want to be in control. It's your, I hate using this term, but it's your baby, right? It's your, you've created this, brought it forward, and to let someone else in on that can be really scary. And so I think it's so important for anyone listening that whatever role you're hiring for, but especially for a role like an OBM, it's an online business manager, I think it's so important that you feel, I'm not saying that you need to be best friends with everyone that you bring into your business, but I think there should be a level of collaboration and friendship that comes to it, even if you're only talking once a week, right? But you should feel comfortable. You should feel like you're able to share things, because if you're not able to share things or you don't like the person that you're working with, I think that you're only going to be able to go so far. And I think that that's really important. And that's why I was so excited to be able to chat with you, because we work with a lot of business owners that don't want, they want an OBM that understands or sees the value in what they do, especially in the
Yes.
more wooey areas. And I
Yes.
think that especially in some of the OBM or VA arenas, you can see people that, I mean, we're, as an accounting firm, we can get support from an OBM all day long, right? But the second we get into like a little bit more wooey or a little bit more spiritual, I think that it narrows the field a little bit sometimes with finding someone that's a good fit and that really doesn't just understand what we do, but like understands and embraces. And I think that that's where you have such a superpower.
That's the key, to embrace it and to go in the same direction as the CEO. Because if my client is channeling archangels or other beings and I'm rolling my eyes at them, that's the wrong energy.
Exactly.
I won't understand if they tell me, okay, well, change of strategy now because I've got a new directives. I have to be able to run. I love that. I do that myself with my business. So we understand each other's. But if someone didn't believe in those things or was very uncomfortable with it, that would be such a clash in the collaboration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that when we met in Palm Springs, we were chatting about, cycle syncing and sort of living your life seasonally. And I'm really curious how you incorporate, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing, but how you incorporate your energy levels or the seasons or your cycle or even the business owners that you're working with, how you work together with energy levels of all sorts, like on a weekly or a monthly or like a, launch basis, even because I know you work a lot of times with someone for launches. Like, do you take that into consideration both for yourself and for them?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Both my cycle and the astrology. So if Mercury is retrograde, I won't be surprised if we need to fix things. It's okay. It's part of what we do. It's part of bettering things, but I'll kind of laugh it off more than if we're not in Mercury retrograde. And yeah, for my cycle, I'm so much more talkative and open and social when it's the start of it. And then at the end, I just want to review things, just finish things, tie things. It feels really good and I embrace it. At the very end, I often feel like I just need to read a book for a couple of days. And I've stopped hitting myself on the head for that because I know, hey, after that, I'll be so pumped to get into work again, into my projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, recovered for sure. When you're working with mentoring other people, is that something that you're like having conversations with them around? Because I know it's something that I've been trying to talk with our clients a lot more about. Like, hey, we work with a lot of women, and are you taking this into consideration in your life instead of beating yourself up about it?
Yes, yes, we do. Not all the time, but when I feel that they're kind of judging themselves for not being as productive as they think they should be, that's when we look at, well, where are you at in your energy cycle and hormone cycles? And maybe it's just fine to rest a little more because after that, you'll peak again. Every month, you'll peak.
Right. It's always the peaks and the valleys. Yeah, I know that I definitely, it's been easier for me, I think, to now that I track my cycle much more regularly, to not be so hard on myself and to plan around it instead of looking at my cycle from a very, like masculine dominant, where every day is the same. You have the cycles within each day versus within the month, and every day is just a new day. Every day is not just a new day in that regard. There are weeks where that, I can do all of the things, and that's great, and I need to plan for that and feel excited for it, rather than for a long time it would sneak up on me where I was like, oh my god, I don't have the energy socially, physically, emotionally to do everything that I did last week this week. Surprise.
Yeah, and it's
That's
no time
okay.
to start planning a lunch or something like that because you'll want to. No, it won't
Turn
be fun at all.
inward and
Yeah.
yeah, be a little bit of a hermit, not be launching everything. No, that's for me. There's an astrologist that I was working with, and she follows this coach, and names are anonymous, but this coach always launches at like the absolute most inopportune times, like Mercury's retro. Not that you can't have a successful launch despite the astrology or despite your
No,
cycle,
no,
right? It just may mean that there's more hurdles to overcome, or that you need to have a more robust support system during that time. But she
exactly.
sits here and she's like, oh my God. She's like, every time she's like, I can almost pick the worst dates of the year to launch, and she will be launching. And she's like, I don't care if you hire me, but like hire someone, because she's successful. She's like, this could be so much easier. And I'm just watching you like go through it. And like her launch page went down one time during during her launch. All of these little tech things, which again lead to the betterment, I think, at the end of the day, but it just causes so many additional hurdles and so much additional work and potential stress, instead of working with your cycles or with your astrology to just have it be a little bit easier and have it be a little bit less stressful. So it's really interesting to me that the OBM that we work with now works with human design and with cycles, and it's very nice for us to have, because there are weeks where I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling it, or that's not the week that we're going to be doing this. And she's like, yep, got it, good to go. Versus, there's definitely people that I've worked with in the past where they'd be like, what are you talking about? And again, when you're trying to work so collaboratively and so closely with someone, because you become in your role a really integral role for a lot of these business owners. And I think that's so important.
Yes, I'm the connection with their team, with their marketing, with their strategy, even sometimes how to find new inspiration for new content. So I oversee everything. I don't do everything, but I'm in touch with a lot of parts of their businesses.
Absolutely. No, it's you get to be the great connector and sort of,
Yeah.
see everything that's going on there. When you're working with, spiritual businesses, what do you wish if you okay, I know that you are behind the scenes. But if you had a microphone or something that you could just megaphone, whatever, and you could project out to all of these business owners that maybe are like, when do I need an OBM? Or like, have I waited too long? Or like, what's the right time? What would you tell these business owners that aren't sure when they should start working with an online business manager, and sort of the clarity and the help that you bring to their businesses?
Well, I think the first thing is when they recognize something could be done better. Some people tend to hire whether a virtual assistant or any kind of help for things they don't want to do anymore, and they think of them as small tasks that they just want to like clear their day from. But I see it more like, how can you enhance your business? I'm not a great graphic designer, for example, so I'm happy to pay good money for a good one. Same with my accountant, things like that. When I hire for customer support, I want someone that's empathetic, available, resourceful, that won't always be checking in with me. And they're going to be so worth their pay. I'm not looking to be cheap on that. I'm looking to generate abundance and generosity in the way I lead businesses so that the return is really worth it.
I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. Is I think so frequently the advice is delegate all the things that you don't like. Great, hypothetically, right? But I think reframing it into, by hiring help, where can you be enhancing your business, your customer experience, your own personal experience within your business? And I think that that is such a more abundant way to reframe it, right? I'll give a really great example, actually. We're looking for help with a housekeeper here. We've had several wonderful housekeepers in the past. Since we moved to where we live now, we have not found someone that has been reliable. Problem is, a lot of housekeepers, I feel like, especially in the area that we are, undercharge for their services. Because they undercharge for their services, they may not have the financial resources to have a backup vehicle if their vehicle needs to go into the shop, to have a childcare option if their child is sick. Like it provides a lack of resources, which in turn can make them less reliable potentially. We're looking at bringing someone in now that charges $50 an hour. I think it's well worth that. I think I would probably end up paying more than that because they're self-employed, they're self-insured, they're licensed, they're bonded, but that is double what a lot of the house cleaners out here charge. Yeah, which is a whole, I feel like I could teach a class on pricing for a lot of the house cleaners out here, because they're providing, one, a very physically demanding service that you generally, if you're trying to do a 40-hour work week as a house cleaner, that is physically just exhausting. And so even if you were looking at that, you're like, okay, well, 30 hours is probably more realistic. What do I need to charge? Add self-employment taxes, add everything else on top of that. I don't want to pay bottom of the barrel prices because I want someone that isn't completely exhausting themselves every week to try to make ends meet. And so I think that in that way, paying more will end up providing, one, an enhanced quality of life for them because they're actually charging a livable wage for what they're doing, and two, a long-term relationship in our household with someone that I can trust, that we can work together for years. That sounds delightful. And I think bringing that over into your business is so important to be doing, because I don't want the cheapest person. I want the person that's going to be the best fit. Of course, their budget may come into play, right? But I think there's such a wide variety of prices that people are willing to pay and that service providers charge. And I think finding that area, because it's definitely changed for me over the years. There was a point in time where I would rather learn how to do something. 9 times out of 10, no. If it's not something that I want to be an expert in or that I'm really excited to, no. You were talking earlier about, like email clients and, systems. That's how I feel about retirement plans. I get really excited about retirement plans and like the different strategies around it. I want to just bury my head in the sand when it comes to looking at different options for email marketing or for setting up a sequence or a launch. Oh my God, I would rather do so many things other than do that. And so a lot of times it just doesn't end up happening until I had someone that could do that in my business. And I feel like that was to my detriment. That was to potential clients' detriment because I'm not putting more out into the world that I could be. And so by bringing on someone like you in a role where you can really be enhancing what you're bringing, I think it's a beautiful way to look at it, to reframe instead of just delegating, simple things, quote, in your mind, because it's not just simple things. It's such a big facet of your business.
Yeah, and also sometimes you don't even need the simple things. I had someone once send me a long list of things she didn't want to do anymore. And after talking together, we realized, well, some of it she doesn't even need to do in her business. It doesn't light her up in the least. So that's why she didn't want to do it. But it wasn't even necessary. There are so many ways to grow a business. We don't have to take the boring way, you know? And when you do things you love, or at least that are more aligned with the strategies and the messages and the values you're trying to convey, well, people notice it. It resonates with them. It's congruent. You're that much more magnetic than if you try to do like everybody else and follow the mainstream strategies that are often created by men. And it's different. It's another way of doing business. And as women, we know we have cycles. We know we fluctuate. We're more creative, we're less creative, more social, less social. And being vulnerable and transparent about it, I feel, is more honest too.
I am so tired, for me personally, I am so tired of the hustle culture narrative. And for a very long time, when I got into business, that's what you thought you had to do. You had to, not to say that I did this necessarily, but you had to wake up at 5 a.m. You had to then, do these things in this order, in this way to be successful, to be a six-figure business owner, to do XYZ. Oh my God. That's a recipe for burnout. In my case, I'm sure that for some humans that works really well and they love it, or it works well until it doesn't. I go through seasons. I go through seasons. This time of year, I'm up between 5 and 6 most days because it's daylight. I joke that I'm a chicken. Our chickens, for for anyone that has chickens, chickens are solar powered. So during the summer, our roosters are up at like 4:30. So I'm normally up not too long afterwards, and they go to bed around 10. During the winter, that looks like 8 a.m., sometimes 8:30, and in bed kind of by about the same time. It's a very slowed down schedule, which is so nice. In the summers, there's just so much to do and it's so abundant. And when I was traditionally employed, trying to keep that same schedule year round was ridiculous. Not even to factor in the fluctuations that came with the business itself, but when you threw seasons and cycles on top of that, and I think that that is such a lie that so many business owners tell themselves, that you have to do it this way. It's the cookie cutter way. It's the one way to success. And I think that success and the journey to success, for whatever success is, and I think success is put as this one size fits all so frequently. And I think that that looks really different for so many of us. My version of success may look totally different from one of our clients or from yours. And I think that's beautiful. That also means that the journeys, there are infinite journeys and paths to get to, quote, your version of success. And I think that embracing those and talking about them is so powerful. And I know that like our conversations and even amongst our team and amongst some of my other fellow business owners, all of our journeys are looking different. And it's really fun to make changes to them, right? Or to play with something and to bring some levity to it. And hey, maybe we're going to try this and see how it feels and is it working? And if it doesn't, we'll scrap it, we'll try something else. Like who cares? And I think that bringing that into your support systems and your team is really fun as well. Especially like I know when we were smaller, I wish when we were a smaller team that I would have been incorporating more of this then. And it is the journey that it's been. And as a larger team, it's interesting sometimes to see, because we have more overlaps, right? And more potential, not necessarily conflicts, but like sticking points when you have more people involved. But I think that being able to start when you were a smaller team with bringing in the seasonality, with sort of unpacking what you should do is just delightful.
Yeah, for sure. It's true that starting a business takes work and there's so much to learn. And I can understand why people are relying on their willpower and trying to push through. But maybe they don't realize that they'll have these peaks of creativity and enhanced energy, and then they'll need to rest. But if they think they still need to keep that pace, they'll burn out. They don't
Exactly.
they don't realize that, oh, well, they've done like bigger days because it was just flowing and they were inspired and it was so much fun, but they also need to take a few days off now because it was a lot of energy.
I think too, in the society that we have now, rest, everything has to be productive, everything has to be efficient. And I think that we're starting to change the narrative around that. But I know for the longest time, if I took a day off, well, all of these things need to be done around the house, or I need to go to these doctor's appointments, or I need to go do these things. And I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place for those, but I also think that there is something really powerful in truly resting and, to the extent that you can, divesting your value as a human being from your productivity.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to be your most productive little robot 100% of the time. Like, life's it takes the fun out of life if that is your main focus all of the time. And that's not it's balance, right? There are seasons in life. There are seasons where you are working. There are weeks where you are working. There can be days or weeks or seasons where things are a little bit slower paced, and that's beautiful. But I think it can make people uncomfortable, or can bring up all of these feelings when you've been conditioned for so long to be productive, right? Feelings of shame, or feelings of guilt, or feelings that you're not worthy enough if you're not always busy. And I think embracing the fact, whether you I think a roundabout way, at least, and I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on it, but something that worked for me was realizing that when I took downtime, true downtime and rest time, I was so much more productive, creative, etc. Which, again, I don't want to have to use that as my justification for giving myself rest, but I think it was a really nice way to transition into, if I don't fully rest, then I show up halfway during my creative, expansive, energetic time frame. And now I just know that, like, it's okay to rest. I laid on the couch almost all day yesterday because it was really hot here. It was so nice. And I had good food and I took a nap. And that's totally fine because next week is a really busy week. I'm preemptively taking care of myself instead of burning out and crashing.
I love this. And I know that even within the spirituality industry, people still feel guilty to take time off. They know they'll tap more into their intuition, into their inner guidance, into their creativity, and be more efficient when they go back to work, because they'll see that some things don't need to be done, or they can be done better, and they'll be better at problem solving. They'll be better in their relationships. But it's so ingrained in us. We're still in the patriarchal world. And so we're always getting the message, well, can you monetize this? Can you be more productive? Can you 6x whatever you're doing? And at some point, something clicks inside that says, you know what? I'm worthy no matter what I'm doing. I'm worthy to make money, and I'm worthy to sit on the couch, listen to the birds, and sip a nice tea, you know?
Absolutely.
It's a journey for sure, but I find one benefit of being an OBM and a mentor is that we can talk about these things together with my clients, and they can have a sounding board and realize, oh, I'm not the only one. You know, it's throughout, like, all entrepreneurs feel like this, because a lot of the starting of a business relies on our own efforts, and our mistakes affect it tremendously. So we feel this pressure, but once we get the momentum rolling, then it's easier. It's much easier. It's important not to get caught in the trap of, well, I still need to keep that pace. You know, I was hustling and I need to keep hustling. No, it was the energy you needed to get started, to launch the business. But now you're on a roll. You have a good momentum. You can step back a little bit, have a lifestyle again, you know, find balance, see your friends, laugh, and just get lost in a novel if you decide to.
I think for me, one of the toughest challenges has been not monetizing every hobby or everything that I'm good with. And that, I think, can be such a challenge because you're told, I I love being outside. I love being in my garden. I love planting. I went to college for sustainable agriculture, like, love it. Yeah, love it. I started a farm TikTok because, well, if I'm out there and I'm spending so many hours out there doing this, I don't, no, I don't need to monetize it. I don't need to monetize it. It gets to just be something that is enjoyable and something that's for me and something that I can share when I want to share. And it might pop up online occasionally. I am tired of feeling like we as entrepreneurs or as business owners need to monetize every little thing in our lives. Or like you said, 6x everything, or six figures this, or 10x, or squeeze every last drop of efficiency out of something. Lord, like absolutely not. That was something when I was building my company, I never planned to have employees because I'd only seen corporate employees for the most part. I'd worked for a few small businesses. I had no desire to replicate what felt like such a broken system. And even now with our team and our employees, we generally work a 32-hour week, a little bit less in the summer, normally Monday through Thursday. There's about a 2-month period during our busy season where it's more than that. And it's quote full-time hours, but there's flexibility within reason. Our team sets their hours. They can go. It's exactly how I was working before. I can go do a yoga class in the middle of the day if I want to. So can anyone. No one cares. No one's micromanaging their time. But even that at times feels like there's additional ways. See, this is me looking for efficiencies in inefficiencies, right? Because I'm like, how do we make this less capitalistic, less patriarchal, right? Like, how do we break the mold a little bit? And I think it's such an interesting spot to be in where I'm always wanting to create an environment that feels really good, both for our clients, for our team, for contractors that we collaborate with, and finding the balance. And it gets imbalanced at times, or it gets, hey, this is a season of like all hands on deck, everything's crazy. Right now it's like, hey, we might shut down for the week, everyone go play, go do the fun things, take advantage of the slowness. And that's been really fun to create as a business owner, but it can also feel like I'm not doing enough sometimes, to create the antithesis of what I saw in corporate for so many years.
Yeah, well, we need to find a balance too. I was reading a great book called Reinventing Organizations, and it was explaining the progression of power through the ages. So there were kings and, the church that was very hierarchical. And then at some point it was more, okay, well, meritocracy. If you're good at it, you deserve it. And then now the latest model is more, we're a family. We're gonna get a consensus on everything. The pendulum is swinging. And then the latest version is called a teal organization, and it's about, okay, we're gonna delegate responsibilities. There are still decision makers, but it's not always the same person at the top. And I feel sometimes we want to be so different from patriarchy that we kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we still need some kind of, I have the talking stick now, and I'm gonna make the call on this decision. For example, we don't all have to agree on it. We need to move forward.
Right. Or you could end up mired in decision making for an eternity and then nothing gets
Yes.
done. I'm like thinking through, we had such an interesting conversation when we were in Palm Springs together. I think it's really powerful to be having these conversations, both on the podcast, both within our teams, with our clients, with, mentees as their mentor. What is something that you find coming up in, again, to the extent that you're comfortable sharing anonymously, but like what's something that you feel comes up a lot in conversation that you wish we were talking about more openly when it comes to, sort of any of these topics with business owners that you've been chatting about?
I really think we're in a great direction.
Yeah.
Well, at least in my little world, we do the shadow work. We dig deep. There are still sticky points, but also we give grace for the learning and for mistakes. I think maybe the only thing that could improve it is community, more of us talking about those things, but we already feel empowered in doing those changes. Like, for example, owning our cycle, for example, making decisions out of intuition, even though the data might not correlate completely, things like that. It's just a matter of doing it more and more. And at some point, it's going to be more and more visible. It's not, a movement to topple patriarchy necessarily. It's just, we're going to build it from the grassroots, and it's going to find its place in society alongside other systems too.
That's beautiful. I I would agree. I feel like we're moving, especially in my little microcosm, I feel like we're moving the right direction. We're having, even over the last 5 years, I feel like more and more of these conversations are happening behind closed doors, but also publicly more often, which I'm so excited for, to see the evolution and the revolution of normalizing. I think that's what it comes down to. A lot of times is we can feel so alone or so siloed in our feelings or thoughts or actions. And I think the more that it's shared and the more that it's talked about, the more that we do find community and like-mindedness, but also that we find other ideas, validation, permission, etc. Like, there are plenty of things that I didn't know about until someone else shared those or shared how it worked for them or how they'd implemented it in their life. And I was like, oh wow, that sounds like something that might work really well for me. And it wasn't, we don't have all the time to do all the Googling and all of the researching. And so I think that so much of that sharing is really powerful. Oh, amazing. I would love to share all of the places where people can find you. So if you're interested both in a mentorship or just in your overall community or in bringing you on as an OBM, where do you hang out the most? Where's the best place to find you and learn more?
Well, they can find me at my website at delightedspirit.com and on Instagram at delightedspirit.com. They'll find everything that's the latest information there.
This was such a fun conversation. Thank you. And everyone, again, make sure that, I think when you're looking to hire, especially an OBM role, but really any role, you're finding someone that understands you and your business. And like I said, I think that's where so much of what your services are and who you are as a human being really bring such a powerful benefit to a lot of business owners that have felt sort of stuck out in the wind for so long when it comes to finding someone that gets them. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I'm glad you're no longer stuck in corporate, in a place where you're not thriving, and that you get to provide such brilliant resources for people.
Well, thank you so much. It was a true pleasure.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Wealth Witches podcast. I hope our magical money talks have left you feeling empowered and inspired. Remember, wealth isn't just about dollars in the bank, it's about abundance and financial freedom in all aspects of your life. I'm Katelyn Magnuson, encouraging you to keep challenging the status quo and embrace your inner witch on this financial journey. Until next time, stay magical.